Help! Someone, please! Urenma's blood-curdling scream tore through the eternal twilight as she ran through streets that shifted and rearranged themselves like pieces of a living puzzle. Behind her, the air rippled with unnatural energy as Ugo, her spirit husband, pursued her with the relentless patience of one who had conquered death itself. His voice, once honey-sweet and alluring, now resonated with otherworldly harmonics that made the very fabric of reality tremble. "You cannot escape, my love," he called, his words echoing from everywhere and nowhere at once. "What belongs to the land of spirits can never truly return to the world of the living." Urenma's heart pounded against her ribs as she realized with horror that her feet no longer touched the ground. She was becoming like them, like him, like the dead. How had it come to this? She wondered desperately as she fled. How had she failed to see the truth that had been before her eyes all along? In the heart of a bee estate, where ancient Iroko trees whispered secrets to the passing winds, Urenma Dike moved through Ibeku village like living poetry. Born to Mazi Obi Dike and Adana Dike, she wasn't merely beautiful. She was beauty itself incarnate. When the morning sun kissed her skin, it revealed a complexion like fertile soil after first rain, rich, smooth, and glowing with life. Her eyes, deep as sacred wells, didn't merely see the world. They seemed to perceive the very souls of those she encountered. When she laughed, even the elders paused their important discussions, their weathered faces softening at the musical sound that seemed to dance on the wind like the sweet melodies of evening birds. But true beauty, as the village elders often said, emanates from within. And Urenma's inner light outshone even her physical perfection. It radiated from the gentle way she bowed to elders, the patience she showed when teaching younger girls to carry water pots on their heads, and, most remarkably, from her hands, those fingers as nimble as a weaver bird's beak that transformed ordinary beads and threads into extraordinary art. Nwanyi Oma, the elders would call her, nodding with approval. Beautiful woman, inside and out. On Eek market days, while village roosters still debated whether to announce dawn, Urenma would already be awake, carefully arranging her jewelry creations in the woven basket her father had presented to her on her 16th birthday. The journey to her market stall was a ritual she cherished. 4 miles of morning-misted pathways as the world slowly awakened around her. "The ancestors blessed your hands, Urenma," customers would marvel, examining intricate patterns that seemed to dance when caught by sunlight. "These beads carry more than beauty. They carry destiny." Indeed, her stall stood as a testament to artistry transcending the mundane. Unlike other sellers who arranged wares by price or material, Urenma displayed her pieces according to the emotions they evoked. Love beads radiating warm reds and passionate purples. Prosperity necklaces gleaming with earthy browns and golden yellows. Protection bracelets woven with midnight blues and forest greens. "Wear this close to your heart," she would tell her customers, her voice soft yet carrying an inexplicable authority. "And you carry a blessing with you always." Many swore that important life events followed a purchase from her collection, as if her beadwork could whisper to the ancestors themselves. "Have you heard?" Mama Chinua's voice carried across the village square like thunder, despite her attempt at whispering. Her ancient fingers, gnarled as tree roots, gestured excitedly as she addressed the circle of women shelling egusi seeds beneath the massive udala tree. Chief Okoro's son returned from America with a car that drinks petrol like water, yet she turned him away as if he offered her nothing more than roasted groundnuts. The women's voices rose in unified disbelief. And the palm oil merchant from Umuahia, with his 21 cows, rejected too. Even the Ease's grandson, that boy whose face has launched 1,000 maidens' dreams, left the Dyke compound empty-handed. Added another, her eyes wide with scandal. Adana Dyke, who had been quietly passing by with her market basket, paused at the edge of the gathering, her heart heavy with both pride and worry for her daughter. "Adana," called Mama Chinua, beckoning her closer. "Come, tell us, has some spirit touched your daughter that she finds every suitable man in 3 states unworthy? At 25, most women would be nursing their 4th child." Adana approached slowly, dignity in every step. "My daughter's heart waits for someone special," she replied carefully. "The ancestors guide her choices." But later, in the privacy of her home, Adana lit extra candles at the ancestral shrine. "My daughter's heart seems to wait for something I cannot see," she confessed during a discreet consultation with the village priestess. The withered woman studied her divination cowries thoughtfully, her blind eyes seeing far beyond the physical world. "Some souls recognize each other across vast distances," she finally responded, her voice like dry leaves underfoot. "Perhaps the one she awaits comes from far beyond our village boundaries." Neither woman could have guessed just how far beyond those boundaries Urenma's destiny would lead her, or how the boundaries themselves would prove more permeable than anyone in Ibeku had ever imagined. Morning broke over Ibeku village with a mist so thick it seemed to swallow sound itself. Market women pulled their wrappers tight against the unseasonable chill, muttering prayers against mischievous spirits as they hurried past Urenma's stall. "This fog is not natural," one elderly woman warned, her eyes darting nervously around the dreamlike marketplace where figures appeared and disappeared like apparitions. "It comes when the veil between worlds thins. Be careful, child." Urenma merely smiled, her fingers adjusting each beaded creation until the display pleased her artistic eye. She paid little attention to these superstitious murmurs, even as the beads in her hands caught what little light filtered through the haze, casting tiny rainbows that danced across her fingers as if trying to escape into the mysterious whiteness surrounding her. A strange stillness had settled over the market. Even the usually vocal goat sellers conducted their business in hushed tones, as though the mist itself might be listening. "This is the 3rd day of unnatural fog," Kiyoma whispered, suddenly appearing beside Urenma's stall. Her childhood friend's usually cheerful face was tight with worry. "The elders say it means the ancestors are restless, or worse, that other spirits walk among us." "You worry too much," Urenma replied with a gentle laugh that momentarily brightened the heavy air. "It's just weather." "Perhaps," Kiyoma conceded, though her eyes continued to scan the misty market apprehensively. "But my grandmother says—" Her words died mid-sentence as the fog before them seemed to part deliberately, making way for a tall figure who materialized as if stepping through an invisible doorway. He emerged from the whiteness with fluid grace, each movement deliberate yet effortless, as though his body operated under different natural laws than those governing ordinary men. He stood before them in a cream-colored caftan of material no village weaver could identify, a fabric that seemed to shimmer like morning dew on spider webs, catching light from directions where no light source existed. "Your beadwork sings to the soul," he said, his voice smooth as fresh palm wine yet clear as mountain spring water. "Each piece tells a story beyond mere words." Urenma found herself momentarily speechless, not from his handsomeness, though he possessed beauty that made young women forget their dance steps, but from the strange intensity of his gaze. For a disorienting moment, she thought she saw patterns moving beneath the surface of his skin, intricate designs flowing like fish beneath clear water, appearing and disappearing too quickly for her mind to grasp. "Thank you," she finally managed, surprised by the slight tremor in her voice. "Each creation carries a piece of my spirit." As they should. His smile carried the brightness of the harvest moon, seeming to illuminate his face from within. "I am Ugo, from beyond the 7 hills of Ogbunike." "Urenma," she replied, though something told her he already knew her name. Kioma shifted uncomfortably beside her. "The fog grows thicker," she interrupted, tugging at Urenma's sleeve. "We should close early today." But Urenma barely heard her friend's words. For the first time in her 25 years, she felt something stir within her that no suitor had ever awakened. A recognition that seemed to bypass her conscious mind and speak directly to her soul. "Will you be at the New Yam Festival tomorrow?" she found herself asking, ignoring Kioma's warning squeeze on her arm. Ugo's smile deepened, revealing teeth of perfect whiteness. "I wouldn't miss it for all the treasures in this world, or beyond it." As he turned to leave, the mist seemed to embrace him, curling around his form almost possessively before swallowing him completely. "Urenma," Kioma hissed once he was gone. "Did you not feel the cold when he stood near? Did you not notice how the beads dimmed in his presence? There's something not right about that man." But Urenma was already gathering her wares, her movements betraying an excitement she hadn't felt before. "Don't be ridiculous," she laughed. "He's just from another village." "No village I've ever heard of," muttered Kioma. "And did you see how he appeared from nowhere? How the mist parted for him as if commanded?" "The mist plays tricks on eyes," Urenma dismissed, though deep within a tiny seed of doubt had been planted, one she was not yet ready to acknowledge. The day of the New Yam Festival dawned clear after days of mysterious mist, as if the ancestors had wiped the air clean to better witness the festivities. By midday, Ibeku village square pulsed with life and color. Women in their finest wrapper sets with head teas, reaching toward the sky like exotic flowers. Men in flowing agbada embroidered with symbols of their family lineages, and children darting between adults with faces painted in white chalk. The air vibrated with sensory delights. The mouth-watering scent of roasting yams drizzled with palm oil. The savory promise of a goosey soup thick with stockfish and crayfish. The sweet temptation of ripe mangoes and sugar cane. Masquerades emerged from the sacred grove, their raffia costumes swirling like colored smoke as they spun to the rhythms of talking drums. Urenma moved with her dance group, her body swaying to complex polyrhythms that made even the elders' feet move involuntarily. The sun caught the coral beads around her neck, sending flashes of light that seemed to punctuate the drum beats. "Nwanyi Oma," a familiar voice called, somehow cutting through the drum beats to reach her ears alone. "Beautiful one, your dance steps echo in the spirit world." Urenma turned to find Ugo standing beneath the ancient Udala tree, materializing as suddenly as he had in the marketplace. The other dancers giggled nervously at this bold approach, but Urenma felt something shift in the air around her, as if reality itself had momentarily rippled like a disturbed pond surface. The drums seemed to fade into distant thunder, and the crowded village square narrowed until it felt like only two people existed within it. Later, when the dance ended and the group dispersed to enjoy the feast, he approached her with confidence that stopped just short of arrogance. "You dance like a water spirit," he said, his eyes reflecting firelight in ways that made the flames seem to dance within them, rather than merely upon them. Urenma found herself blushing, a sensation so unfamiliar that it momentarily confused her. "And you appear like one. No one knows where you came from," she replied, surprised by her own boldness. He laughed then, the sound rich like palm wine, but with an echo that seemed to linger in the air seconds longer than natural acoustics should allow. "I come from Ogbunike, beyond the 7 hills," he explained, his gaze never leaving her face. "I saw you in my dreams and had to find you." "You speak as boldly as you appear and disappear," she challenged, though her heart raced with unexpected pleasure at his words. "When one recognizes what they've sought across great distances, why waste time with timid approaches?" he countered, reaching for her hand. His fingers were cool despite the festival heat, yet his touch sent warmth spiraling through her body like palm wine on an empty stomach. For a moment, so brief she later wondered if she had imagined it, his hand seemed to shimmer with translucence, as if momentarily becoming mist before solidifying again. "Dance with me again," he said, and though it wasn't customary for couples to dance separately from the groups during festivals, Urenma found herself nodding. As they moved together beneath the stars that seemed unusually bright that night, whispers followed them like persistent shadows. Yet Urenma was already ensnared in love's sweet trap, deaf to concerns that grew increasingly urgent around her. Their courtship unfolded with the relentless momentum of a river rushing toward a waterfall, swift, intense, and carrying everything in its path toward an inevitable conclusion. Ugo appeared at unexpected moments throughout Urenma's days, materializing by the stream as she filled her water pot in the cool morning hours, emerging from between market stalls just as she finished a transaction, waiting beneath the udala tree where she liked to rest during the heat of afternoon. "How do you always find me?" she asked one evening as they walked along the village outskirts, her basket of beads balanced effortlessly on her head. "Love knows no boundaries," he replied, with that mysterious smile that both thrilled and unsettled her. "It follows paths invisible to ordinary eyes." The gifts he brought defied natural explanation. Mangoes without a single blemish that glowed with inner light, strange fruits unknown in Abia state that tasted of pure happiness, jewelry crafted from materials no local artisan could identify. "These are not of this world," Kioma warned one afternoon, returning a necklace Ugo had given Urenma. "My fingers grew cold as ice when I touched it. Please, my friend, open your eyes to what stands before you." But Urenma laughed away her concerns. "You've always been superstitious, Kioma. His village simply has different craftsmen than ours." Yet observant villagers noted troubling patterns that Urenma's love-blinded eyes failed to see. He never came during the height of day when the sun blazed directly overhead. No one could say where he slept in the village. When he visited Urenma's family compound, the dogs would howl mournfully before slinking away to hide, and chickens would fall into unnatural silence. Even the village Dibia attempted to intervene. "There is something about your suitor that walks between worlds," he warned Urenma one quiet afternoon at her market stall, ritual chalk dust still clinging to his scarification marks. "I consulted the spirits about this stranger. They say this Ugo casts no shadow because he borrows his light from another world." "The ancestors blessed our meeting," she declared, her voice leaving no room for debate. "Why else would they bring him to our festival?" But deep in places she refused to examine, doubt had planted tiny seeds that would later grow into revelation. The wine-carrying ceremony preparations only revealed further abnormalities. When Urenma's father requested to send representatives to Ugo's village to meet his family, as custom demanded, Ugo presented reasons for delay that seemed reasonable in the moment, but dissolved into vague recollections afterward. "My father is traveling to distant markets," he would say. Or, "My mother is observing sacred rituals that allow no visitors." He brought unfamiliar priests for the traditional ceremonies, men who spoke Igbo with an accent no one could place, whose ritual scarifications followed patterns unknown in Abia State, and who smelled faintly of damp earth regardless of how recently they had bathed. Most disturbing were Ugo's family members who attended the initial ceremonies, individuals who arrived after sunset and departed before dawn, who spoke in whispers even during celebratory moments, whose skin seemed too pale despite claiming villages with the same burning sun as Ibeku. "Did you notice," Urenma's mother whispered to her husband late one night, "how none of them touch the food? How their eyes never quite focus on who they speak to?" "Perhaps they follow different customs," Maisie Dyke replied, though his voice lacked conviction. "Their village may have different ways." "No village has ways that defy nature itself," Adana insisted. "I saw his uncle pass through our chicken coop without opening the gate. Through it, husband, not around it." But preparations continued despite growing unease, for Urenma's happiness seemed to outweigh all concerns. When questioned directly about her suitor's strangeness, she would reply with the certainty of the deeply enchanted. "Love sees beyond superficial differences. Our souls recognized each other instantly." The wedding day dawned with unusual darkness, as if the sun struggled to rise against an opposing force. Urenma radiated beauty that transcended the merely human, adorned in coral beads that had graced the necks of dyke women for 7 generations, and white lace that captured and intensified the limited sunlight like freshly fallen snow. She failed to notice how the sun seemed to dim whenever Ugo's family members gathered in groups, creating pockets of shadow regardless of the time of day. She was too consumed with happiness to register how her own relatives shivered, despite the heat when they got too close to her new in-laws, or how conversations died abruptly when Ugo approached. The ceremony itself passed in a dreamlike blur, with moments of startling clarity punctuating stretches of foggy recollection. The weight of ancient coral beads against her collarbones, the unexpected chill of Ugo's hand when it grasped hers during vows, the strange harmonics in the voices of his family members when they joined in traditional songs, hitting notes that human throats should not produce. After the ceremony, when dancers had demonstrated their skills and drummers had beaten rhythms to please both humans and ancestors, Ugo announced they would leave immediately for his village. "Mama, don't worry," Urenma reassured her tearful mother, hugging the older woman whose eyes shimmered with tears, containing more fear than normal maternal separation anxiety. "I will visit soon, once I've settled in my new home." Adana clutched her daughter with unusual desperation, slipping something into Urenma's hand, a small leather pouch containing protective herbs and her grandmother's silver thimble. "Keep this with you always," she whispered urgently. "Remember who you are and where you come from." The journey commenced as evening approached, with Ugo leading his bride along paths that somehow seemed subtly wrong. Familiar landmarks appeared on the wrong sides of trails, and vegetation gradually transformed from the lush forests of a biostate to unfamiliar flora that seemed to react to their presence. Leaves turning to follow their movement like spectators watching processions. Animals fell silent as they passed, creating bubbles of unnatural quiet in forests that should have buzzed with evening insects and nocturnal creatures. When they stopped to rest, Urenma noticed with growing unease that stars appeared in patterns she had never seen in all her nights sleeping under Ibeku skies. "Almost home, my love," Ugo would say whenever she questioned their route, his beautiful voice now seeming to echo from somewhere deep underground. "Just a little further to your new life." The moment they crossed into Ogbunike territory, reality shattered around Urenma like a clay pot dropped onto rocks. The village that materialized before her bore superficial resemblance to normal settlements, yet fundamental wrongness permeated every aspect of its existence. Buildings stood impossibly tall with proportions that hurt the eyes. Streets rearranged themselves when not directly observed, and people moved in ways that defied natural movement, sometimes floating inches above the ground, their forms occasionally blurring at the edges like ink drawings caught in rain. "Welcome to your new home," Ugo said with evident pride, leading her toward a magnificent compound that dominated the village center. A structure that defied architectural possibility, with walls that shifted when not directly observed, and doorways that led to different rooms depending on the time of day. That first night brought revelations that tore away love's blinding veil. Awakening to strange sounds, Urenma crept to her window and witnessed scenes that confirmed her growing suspicions. People walking through solid walls, trees communicating through complex movements, a moon hanging too large and too red in the night sky. "Ugo," she called out, unable to keep the tremor from her voice. "What is this place?" Her husband emerged from shadows too deep for the room's dimensions, but he looked different from the man she had married. His skin now possessed a translucent quality that allowed glimpses of intricate patterns flowing beneath its surface, and his eyes glowed with inner fire. "This is my world, my love," he said softly, his voice maintaining its honeyed richness, but now layered with impossible harmonics. "The world of those who have passed beyond. I am a prince here in the land of eternal twilight, and now you are my princess." Horror dawned on Urenma as comprehension crystallized. You're dead," she whispered. "Death is just another state of being," he replied with the same gentle smile that had won her heart. "I saw you during the festival when the veil between worlds thinned. I loved you from that moment and had to have you as my own. Here we will be together forever, never aging, never suffering illness, never experiencing loss. Isn't that what all humans ultimately desire?" Days in the spirit world had no relation to the rhythms she had known throughout her life. Urenma watched her own body with growing horror, noticing subtle changes suggesting gradual transformation. Occasional moments when her feet didn't quite contact the ground, instances when her reflection showed a face beginning to shimmer with translucence. Another night, though time had lost linear meaning, Urenma awakened to voices singing funeral dirges. Following these sounds, she found herself standing at the edge of an endless field of white flowers that glowed with their own luminescence under a blood-red moon. "Welcome, new bride." Assembled spirits acknowledged her in perfect unison, their voices harmonizing in ways that human anatomy could not achieve. "Welcome to the land where time circles rather than precedes, where memory serves as foundation rather than shadow." Ugo materialized beside her, his appearance cycling between different states of solidity. "Don't be afraid," he said, reaching for her with hands that passed through objects when he wasn't concentrating. "This is your home now, your eternity. Here you cannot die, because you cannot die in a place where death already rules." Terror finally shattered love's enchantment completely. Urenma ran, her feet carrying her through streets that rearranged themselves like puzzle pieces shifted by an unseen hand. But in this realm, physical escape proved impossible. Every path eventually curved back upon itself, leading inevitably to Ugo's compound. Yet deep within her heart, a stubborn flame of humanity refused to be extinguished. She remembered her grandmother's stories about spirit worlds. Every spirit realm had rules and limitations, her grandmother had insisted. Every prison contained its keys, if one possessed knowledge and courage enough to find them. While Urenma studied the spirit world's patterns, her mother Adana refused to accept her daughter's strange disappearance. She traveled from one Dibia to another, crossing all of Abia state with her questions and fears. In a small compound near the famous Ogbunike caves, Adana found an ancient priestess of Allah, whose blind eyes perceived realities invisible to ordinary sight. "Your daughter lives in the land of eternal twilight," the priestess said, her voice rasping as her gnarled fingers traced patterns on the childhood wrapper Adana had brought. "She was taken by one who loved her beauty too much to accept the boundary of death. But love, rooted in possession, is like a pot without a bottom. It can hold nothing of true value." The priestess provided specific instructions for a ritual that might open a temporary pathway between realms. On the night of the new moon, when darkness was complete and the barrier between worlds thinned to transparency. In the spirit world, Urenma felt her mother's ritual like a distant thread tugging at her heart. She had prepared carefully, gathering power in small ways that went unnoticed, collecting herbs that made spirits recoil, memorizing patterns that created boundaries spirits could not cross, keeping her mother's protective pouch against her skin. When the new moon made the spirit world's eternal twilight darken slightly, she began her escape. But Ugo, who had watched her with the patience of the dead, finally understood her intentions. His rage transformed the very fabric of his realm. The ground cracked open, revealing depths where ancient spirits crawled in eternal darkness. The too-close moon turned black as tar, and the air itself began to cry with the voices of all his previous brides. For Urenma now realized she was not the first he had taken, only the latest. "You cannot leave." His voice shook the foundations of both worlds. "You are mine in life and death." But Urenma had learned the most important lesson. In any realm, love given freely had more power than love taken by force. She stood her ground as reality twisted around her. "You should have loved me enough to let me choose," she said, her voice carrying the strength of her humanity. "Real love is not a cage, no matter how beautiful its bars." She began to sing, not the funeral songs of his realm, but the folk songs her grandmother had taught her, songs about life and growth and change. The sound of her living voice created ripples in the spirit world's fabric, and in those ripples she saw the path home. Running through a reality that melted and reformed with each step, Urenma followed the pull of her mother's ritual. Behind her, Ugo's anguished howl rose above the chaos of his collapsing realm. "If you leave, you will age, you will suffer, you will die," he cried, his beautiful face contorting with grief and rage. Urenma paused at the threshold between worlds, looking back at the spirit who had loved her beauty so much he had stolen her life. For a moment, pity softened her features. "Better one day of real love than an eternity of beautiful lies," she said gently, then stepped through. The return was like being born again. Urenma awoke in her mother's arms in the shrine of the Allah priestess, her body remembering how to be fully solid, fully present, fully alive. A year had passed in the world of the living, though it had felt like both moments and eternities in the spirit realm. Her story spread throughout Abaya State, told in whispers at first, then in songs. She became known as a wise woman, teaching others to recognize the signs of spirit deception, gifts too perfect to be real, love too swift to have roots, promises too beautiful to be true. Years later, when she married a man whose love grew slowly like a sturdy Iroko tree, the celebration lasted 7 days and 7 nights. During the ceremony, a cold wind blew through the village, carrying the sound of weeping. But this time, the sound held no power over her. For Urenma had learned that real love warms rather than chills, strengthens rather than possesses, and above all, offers choice rather than chains. Her children and grandchildren grew up knowing that the most beautiful things in life are those that are real enough to change, age, and even end, for that is what gives them their deepest value. And sometimes, on nights when the moon hangs full and bright over Ibeku, old women still tell her story to young girls dazzled by too perfect suitors. They say the truly wise can still see Ugo on festival nights, standing beneath the Udala tree, watching the dancers with his eternal, empty love. But his power is gone, broken by a love strong enough to choose humanity over endless twilight. This story teaches that true love empowers rather than imprisons, offers choice rather than demands possession, and values honest imperfection over deceptive perfection. The most beautiful things in life are those that can change, grow, and even end, for their state of not lasting forever makes them precious. Listen to the wisdom of your elders. Trust your instincts when something seems too perfect, and remember that a love that denies your humanity, no matter how magical it appears, is no love at all. Thank you for joining us today at Ibeku Tales and Stories. If you've enjoyed today's journey, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Hit that notification bell to ensure you never miss our storytelling adventures. Share this video with someone who needs to hear a good story today. Thank you for sticking around. See you in the next one.